everybody. My name is Itai. My preferred gender pronouns are they, them, theirs. And welcome to my second piano tutorial video. So if you were here for the first one, it was about what is a chord. If you already know what a chord is, this is a good place to start. We are learning how to learn a cover song and accompany yourself without being fed everything note by note from a YouTube tutorial. This is a longer process because we're actually going to break down what we're hearing, which will enable us to apply this information to more songs and play the song you're playing in your own way that's appropriate for your level. But it's a longer process. It means that we're learning a little bit of theory and ear training. Okay, and I'm going to tell you why I'm doing that in the last video. So I'm using the song Ripple by the Grateful Dead as an example. Of course, this applies to any song. So in our last video, we learned 3 chords, G major, C major, and D. And now I'm going to show you how they fit under the song. I know we're upside down, so just try your best. Starting at G. If my words did glow with the gold of sunshine, and my tune was played on a harp unstrung. I'm kind of playing them just at the beginning of each measure. Obviously, that's not what I did, right? I did this. A lot more notes, but we're going to start by knowing the 3 notes of that chord, where it fits, and then how to play it in different voicings, how to play it in different places on the piano, and then kind of play it all over the keyboard and make rhythm with it. But first we need to know not this note goes here, then that one goes there, then like play this, on that beat and that measure. We have sheet music for that. So instead of doing that, here's the process. Okay, so once again, if my words did glow like the gold of sunshine, and my tune was played on a harp unstrung. How did I know that it was those chords? I'm going to do this in my left hand with the melody over here. You have a note that's part of the chord. That's what sounds best with this. With the gold of sun. You hear how I went somewhere else? You heard a sort of shift. That was a change in chord. Okay, notice I'm not doing this. I'm doing that. You generally don't want to play all of your chords in root position. That's why we learn the different voicings, so that you can get from here to there in a way that is like not as disruptive as doing this. Easier on your hand, although it takes a little more thinking ahead of time, a little more practicing. In the long run, it's less jumping around. And it sounds cooler, right? Because all I did here is I shifted these 2 notes. G stays the same because the chords G and C have that G note in common. So, if my words did glow like the gold of sunshine, you hear that chord changed, you heard a little shift, and my tune, here you hear that it didn't change, that it stayed kind of in the same idea. My tune was played on a harp unstrung, and you heard it go home. Now, if what I'm saying doesn't make any sense, you heard it go home, you didn't hear it go home, you heard it go somewhere else, that's an ear training thing. We're gonna train ourselves to hear that stuff. So if you can't hear what I'm talking about right now, pay attention to what I'm pointing out. You'll start being able to hear it. So here's one exercise. When you hear it land, when you hear that I showed an example in the last video. That path is for your steps alone. If I knew the way, I would take you home. It goes home. Every time you hear it go home, say home. That is the first thing to get used to hearing when you train your ear to hear the relationship between notes. Let's practice it. When it goes home, say home. Home. We went somewhere. We stayed there. You heard it go home. We're home. We heard it go somewhere else. And you hear a sort of resolution. Okay, so that's what it sounds like when you hear these things. What does it look like? My words that glow with the gold of sunshine, and my tune was played on a harp unstrung. Would you hear my voice come through the music? Did you hear how the melody was the same both times? Would you hear my voice come through the music? Same thing. If my words that glow like the gold of sunshine, would you hear my voice come through the music? Would you hold it near as it were your own? I'm going to break that down. We have our third chord that we learned from the last video, D. D in root position is right here. D, F sharp, A. I played it over here in a different order. I took that D, I flew it up here. Why did I do that? So that it's easier to do in one hand without jumping all over the place. It's faster, it also sounds better. More words to glow, the gold of sunshine, and my tune was played on a harp unstrung. Would you hear my voice come through the music? Practice this with me. Would you hold G major, it near F sharp, A, D, C, as it were your own. All right, so that's the verse of the song. Here's a thing you can practice. You have your chords G, C, D, G, and you want to practice that on different parts of the keyboard so that you can go from one chord to the next without jumping to the next root position chord. What do I mean by that? In our last video, we learned root position chords with the note that names the chord on the bottom, and also scrambling them to make a different voicing. So you know how I went from that G in root position to the C not in root position, and then the D not in root position? I happen to have started with a root position G. I could have also started with G over here. This G that starts with a D. You know, I took that D from here, I flew it down here. So what are some ways that I can get to the chord C from this chord G? Well, the G stays in common, so I keep this G here. I could move my B up a half step to C and my D up a half step to E and practice going from this G to that C. I'll do it one more time. G, C. Alternately, let's say I have this chord, G major. Here's root. Here it is with the D down here. I could also go to C by doing this. My C could be in root position. D in second inversion. C in root position. D in root position because that's the closest. And then I could go back to this G. Or I could play G down here. Alternately, I could start with this G. I could play C in root position. I could play D in root position and go back to this G. Or I could start with this G, first inversion. I could play C in root position. I could play D over here with A on the bottom and go back to this G. Or I could jump up to a different voicing and then do the next round somewhere else, right? So what you want to practice is playing that progression in several different places so that you can add some interesting stuff, not like play it all basic every time, because you're not going to do that for like a whole 4-minute song, right? You're going to play your chords in different places. So let's practice a few of those. And how about in the left hand? You hear how they sound the same, even if they're in a different order? That's what I was talking about before with there being notes that you hear more prominently. That's what's making that sameness. There are many different ways to play that progression. If you're feeling a little lost, what you should know is that you're playing the notes G, B, D, any order, C, E, G, any order, D, F sharp, A, any order, G, B, D, any order. And you want that when you switch from one chord to the next, that you play the notes closest to the hand position you're currently in by switching from a 1-3-5 fingering to a 5-2-1, or if you're in the right hand, a 1-3-5 fingering to like a 1-2-4. See what I'm doing? 1-2-4, 1-3-5, and that way you're not jumping all over the keyboard, because that would take, more energy and wouldn't sound as good. All right, that is it. And once you're able to do that, we can get to different rhythms and other stuff. But basically, the process is learn what the chords are. Yes, my cat has a lot to say about this. Learn what the chords are. Learn how to play them on different points, different parts of the keyboard. And also know where they fit under the melody. You can do that by ear. I'll talk about how to do that by ear in a different video. You can do that by looking up the chord chart. If you can't hear where the chords fit under the melody, usually there's going to be lyrics that'll fill you in on that. So that's the next thing to practice, playing that progression in different voicings. So let me know if you have any questions, support@itaigal.com, and best of luck practicing.